basic scene setup. First, I'll show you the final result. So what we're trying to achieve here is this. So our player can move around, right click, and then when I press 1, which will be my ability at the bottom, you'll put up the indicator circle, and then once I left click on the enemy, it'll shoot a fireball and then it'll go on cooldown. And also, if it's out of range, for example, I'm walking away and I want to click it, it'll walk towards the enemy, and then once it's in range, it'll shoot a fireball. Or it can do it while it's in range as well. Let me show you. It will rotate and then shoot a fireball towards the enemy. So in my scene, I have the player and the enemy, a cylinder, which is a test dummy. If you've seen the MOBA character series, the player will pretty much consist of the capsule collider, player animator, nav mesh agent, movement script, hero combat script, stat script, and the enemy will have the targetable script and the stat script and the capsule collider. What I added and what I changed was this fireball script. It's pretty much the ability cooldown script, movement script, and hero combat script all mashed into one, just so we could make up the fireball ability. There's quite a lot of lines of code here, so it is kind of messy, but I'll try my best in explaining it. So at the top, you'll have your in-script stuff. So animator, raycast hit, and movement. So you got anim, hit, and move script. The second bit, I put a header called fireball ability. So these variables pretty much are involved in what makes the fireball shoot. So right now we have the fireball ability image, the cooldown, the 2 balls is cooldown, which is equal to false, and then can fireball, which is equal to true. The key you press to shoot the fireball, the projectile prefab, and the spawn point where you want to spawn the projectile. In the start method, we'll have the fireball.image fill amount set to 0. We'll have the indicator range circle image set to false. So we'll have this circle right here not show at the start. We'll reference the move script just by doing get component movement. Also get the animator, anim equals get component animator. And in the update method,
a few moments later.
Now that I think about it, I'm not sure if we need this. Yeah, I think this was meant to be for the ability. Whoops, so we can get rid of that. And I think we can get rid of this. Pause up. Yeah, pretty sure we don't need this. I'm just gonna quickly check see if that stuffs up anything. No, it doesn't. Feel free to also pause and screenshot the variables. I think I'm going a bit too fast, but here's the place where you can screenshot or pause. And the update method, just a fireball ability now. Didn't need that extra stuff. That's for a different ability that I'll do in the future. So in the fireball ability, first we'll have if the input.get key, the key ability, which for me is 1. And if the cooldown is false, we'll pretty much set this indicator circle to true. We'll do another if statement where if the image is set to true, click the left mouse button. We'll do another check to see if it hits an enemy with the targetable script. As you saw earlier, there was the targetable script on our on our enemy, which is minion. So it will pretty much find whatever game object has the targetable script and the target type minion, and then that will equal as our targeted enemy. And then if we hit anything else, the targeted enemy will equal to null. So it does another check and then sets the enemy to null. So now that we've clicked on our enemy and we have a target, we'd want to move towards that target. So we'll do the check if the target is not equal to null. So if it's alive, we'll have our player move towards the target if it's greater than the max ability distance, and we'll get the move script.agent, which is the nav mesh agent in the movement script, and we'll have the player move towards that location and stop at the max ability distance minus 0.5. It's better if you put minus 0.5, so it'll go a bit closer, not too close, but a bit closer than the ability distance, the max ability distance you put. Because once I put just max ability distance, it'd move the player would move towards the enemy until it reaches the distance you put, and then it won't calculate it and it won't let it do the rest of the code, which is it won't let it spawn the projectile. So it's just good to just put 0.5. You can put 0.25 if you want, but 0.5 is much safer. I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So once it's moved, else we'll do a rotation script where the player will pretty much face towards wherever the enemy is, and we'll also have the player stop moving while facing towards the enemy. You'd always want them to stop while facing towards the enemy, and then after that we'll do the spawn fireball. I put a comment here. So if can fireball, the is cooldown is equal to true, so we'll set the cooldown to true, and then the fireball image dot fill amount will equal to 1, and then we'll start the coroutine of fireball. Now once the is cooldown ball is set to true, you can see here that the fireball image dot fill amount minus equals 1 divided by the cooldown times time dot delta time, and then we'll also set the range ability circle to false, and then once it's back, once the cooldown is finished, the fill amount will equal back to 0 again, and then you press the ability again. So that's pretty much a quick way of doing a cooldown for an ability. I personally like it this way since it's very simple and there's not much to it. Now in the coroutine, which we called over here in the can fireball, it will pretty much have the can fireball set to false, and then the animation.setBall fireball, which is equal to true, which is this animation that we have over here. The animation ball will go back to false, and then it'll go back to idle. It will be able to do the fireball ability again once the cooldown is finished. And over here we have a public void fireball attack. This is what we'll call in the animation event itself. So when you saw over here that it did the fireball animation, if we go to the fireball animation itself, go down to events, and then over here you'll see like a little clip thing. So what this does, so I put the frame over there, and then I'll call this particular function from this script. So what this script does, if the targeted enemy is not equal to null, and we do the check if it has a targetable script, and if it's the type minion, it will spawn the projectile towards the enemy. So this spawn projectile, it spawns a projectile prefab in the spawn point that we had earlier, and it will move towards the player and damage them. You can see over here, if the type enemy is equal to minion, it will spawn the projectile prefab, which is over here. This is pretty much the script you'll want to attach to the projectile prefab that you want to spawn as the fireball, because then it will find the target type minion with a targetable script, and it will pretty much move towards it. This part, it will move towards it, and then once it's less than 0.5 of the enemy, you'll pretty much destroy it, or you can damage it, whatever you want to do to it. But what I love about the fireball attack is that you don't call it in the script, you call it in the animation itself. So once it reaches that particular timestamp, that's when it will spawn the projectile. When you're looking to a play, you can see that I just put like a empty game object as a spawn point. It's not really ideal that I put it right here, but for the sake of the video, I just put the spawn point right here, because when it does the animation, that's usually where his hand is. When we look at the script, so we have the fireball ability, so which is pretty much this. I got it from Google, and then we have the ability key, which is alpha 1, which is number 1. The range projectile, this was from the episode 9, so check that out. It's not that long, but you can just have a look at how that one works. I pretty much just used that projectile and used it for this. And then the spawn point, and then the indicator image. So this was the circle, the indicator circle. Then the max ability distance. This one you might have to play around with depending on your UI. I just set 5 and then had to estimate how big the indicator circle is. And the target enemy, you don't really have to worry about that, because that's when it'll show once you click on that enemy. I just like seeing it there just to know if it's working. And then the cooldown as well, set to 3. Right now we'll press play again, and once I press 1, you'll see on the animation that's when it spawns the projectile. So instead of having to time it within the script, you can just put it in the animation event and it'll pretty much do it itself. If you do want to pause the video and copy down the script, here it is. Other than that, I will update the GitHub. It will be in this ability series folder, because the character series will be in a separate folder, and then the new series will be in the ability series folder. So everything you'll find in this project will be in the description. Anyways, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.